In the dim glow of a distant star, aboard an interstellar cruiser that hummed with life, sat Liam Harper, a man who never imagined his days would involve conversations with beings from galaxies far beyond Earth. The room around him shimmered subtly, as if alive, its walls pulsing faintly like the heartbeat of some colossal organism. Across the table sat Princess Lyria Valen, heir to the crystalline empire of Etherion. Her beauty was otherworldly, literally so, with skin that shimmered like opalescent moonlight and eyes that seemed to contain entire constellations within them. The two had been chatting for hours now, their voices weaving through languages both alien and human, thanks to the translator device strapped to Liam's wrist. It wasn't supposed to be this way. When he'd first boarded the ship after being rescued from the wreckage of his own spacecraft, he expected hostility or at least indifference. Instead, he found curiosity, and in Lyria something more. She leaned forward ever so slightly, her long fingers tracing patterns on the metallic surface of the table. Her expression was casual but deliberate, like she'd practiced this moment many times before yet still felt unsure. "So," she began, her voice soft but commanding, "are you single human?" Liam blinked twice, caught off guard by the question. His mind raced back over everything they'd talked about: quantum physics, cultural rituals, even silly jokes about how humans use spoons instead of siphoning nutrients directly into their bloodstream. This sudden pivot into personal territory left him flustered. He cleared his throat awkwardly and replied, "Yes, why?" Lyria tilted her head, a gesture that reminded him oddly of a curious cat. "Why not?" she countered playfully, though there was a glimmer of seriousness beneath her words. "You seem interesting enough." That response sent Liam spiraling further into confusion. Interesting? Him? Sure, he'd always thought himself decent company. Good at small talk, capable of holding meaningful conversations. But interesting? To an alien princess whose people could manipulate gravity itself? Before he could formulate another answer, Lyria stood up gracefully, her flowing robes catching the ambient light and scattering it across the room like stardust. "Come," she said simply, extending one elegant hand toward him. "There is much more I wish to show you." Without hesitation, or perhaps because hesitation might make things worse, Liam took her hand. As soon as their palms touched, a strange warmth spread through him, not unlike standing too close to a campfire on a cold night. But instead of discomfort, it brought clarity, as though every synapse in his brain was firing just a little bit brighter. They walked together down corridors that twisted impossibly, defying all logic of architecture Liam knew. Portals shimmered along the walls, each revealing glimpses of worlds he'd only dreamed of reading about in science fiction novels. One showed lush forests where trees glowed neon green. Another displayed oceans filled with bioluminescent creatures large enough to swallow cities whole. And then there was the sound, the faint hum of energy coursing through the ship, almost musical in its rhythm. At one point, Lyria paused near what appeared to be a massive window overlooking space itself. Stars stretched out endlessly, pinpricks of light against the velvet expanse of eternity. She gazed out silently, her profile sharp and regal under the soft illumination. For a moment, Liam forgot how to breathe. There was something profoundly intimate about sharing silence with someone who came from such a different world. "I've never done this before," she admitted finally, breaking the quiet. Her tone carried weight, as though confessing something deeply personal. "Done what?" Liam asked cautiously, sensing the importance of whatever she was about to say next. "Asked anyone, not just a human, if they're available." She turned to face him fully now, her gaze unwavering. "Among my kind, relationships are calculated. Strategic unions meant to strengthen alliances, secure resources, ensure peace. Emotion rarely factors into it." Liam raised an eyebrow, trying to mask his surprise. "So asking me, that's different?" She nodded slowly. "Different indeed. My advisors would call it reckless. Perhaps even dangerous." He chuckled nervously, scratching the back of his neck. "Well, I'm no strategist, but I think taking risks can be worth it sometimes." Her lips curved upward slightly, though whether it was amusement or agreement, he couldn't tell. "Perhaps," she murmured. Then, without warning, she spun on her heel and continued walking, forcing Liam to jog a few steps to catch up. Their destination turned out to be a chamber unlike any Liam had seen before. The floor was transparent, offering a vertigo-inducing view of the stars below. Floating platforms hovered at varying heights, each displaying holographic projections of art pieces that seemed alive, shifting and morphing as if responding to the emotions of those observing them. In the center of the room stood a pedestal, upon which rested a glowing orb pulsating gently, casting ripples of color across the walls. "This," Lyria announced grandly, gesturing to the scene around them, "is our gallery of echoes. Here, memories become art. Feelings take form." Liam stepped closer to one of the floating displays, mesmerized. The image depicted what looked like a battlefield, but instead of violence, it radiated sorrow, a palpable heaviness that made his chest tighten. Nearby, another projection showed laughter incarnate, golden streams of joy swirling freely in midair. "How does it work?" he asked, genuinely intrigued. "Our minds interface with these constructs," Lyria explained, joining him. "We project our most profound experiences onto them, allowing others to witness fragments of our souls." As she spoke, the orb on the pedestal flared brighter, drawing both their attention. Without hesitation, Lyria reached out and touched it. Instantly, the room transformed. They were no longer in the gallery but standing amidst towering crystal formations that refracted sunlight into dazzling rainbows. Birds, or creatures resembling birds, flitted overhead, singing melodies that resonated deep within Liam's core. "What is this place?" he whispered, awestruck. "My home," Lyria replied softly. "Etherian Prime." Before Liam could process the magnitude of what he was seeing, the ground quaked violently, shaking loose shards of crystal from above. Alarms blared suddenly, piercing the serene atmosphere. Lyria grabbed his arm tightly, pulling him toward cover behind a jagged spire. "We must leave," she shouted over the noise. "Now!" But as they turned to flee, shadowy figures emerged from the chaos, soldiers clad in sleek black armor, weapons trained directly on them. At their lead stood a figure whose resemblance to Lyria was unmistakable, though his features were colder, harsher. "Princess," the man sneered, stepping forward. "I warned father this folly would end poorly." Lyria's grip on Liam tightened. "Brother," she spat, venom lacing her voice. "You dare interfere?" The tension between them crackled like electricity. Liam glanced between the siblings, trying to piece together what was happening. Whatever this conflict was, it clearly ran deeper than sibling rivalry. "You know the laws," the brother continued, ignoring her accusation. "Humans are forbidden here. Yet you parade him around like some trophy." "He is not a trophy," Lyria snapped, fury igniting in her eyes. "He is." She stopped herself abruptly, as though realizing she didn't have the right words, or perhaps wasn't ready to admit them aloud. Her hesitation gave the brother the opening he needed. With a swift motion, he signaled his troops, who advanced menacingly. Lyria pushed Liam behind her protectively, raising her free hand in preparation for what looked like a fight. "Just stay close," she instructed tersely, her voice low. "And trust me." Trust her? Liam barely trusted himself in this situation. But as the first bolt of energy shot toward them, dodged narrowly by Lyria's quick reflexes, he realized he didn't have much choice. With a wave of her hand, Lyria conjured a barrier of shimmering light, deflecting incoming attacks while simultaneously pushing back against the advancing soldiers. Liam watched in awe as she moved with fluid grace, every action precise and calculated. Despite the danger, he couldn't help feeling a strange sense of pride, like he was witnessing something extraordinary. Then, just when it seemed they might gain the upper hand, reinforcements arrived. More armored figures poured into the area, surrounding them completely. Trapped, Lyria turned to Liam, desperation etched onto her face. "There's one last option," she said urgently. "But it's risky." "Do we have a choice?" he shot back, clutching the edge of the barrier as it began to falter under relentless assault. Lyria hesitated only briefly before nodding. "No," she admitted grimly. "We don't." Taking a deep breath, she closed her eyes and pressed both hands against the orb still hovering nearby. A surge of power erupted outward, enveloping them in a cocoon of light. Time seemed to stretch and warp, the world outside fading into nothingness. When the brightness faded, They found themselves back aboard the cruiser, but not alone. Standing nearby was a group of unfamiliar aliens, their expressions unreadable. One of them stepped forward, addressing Lyria in a language Liam couldn't understand. Whatever the message was, it caused Lyria's shoulders to slump slightly, as if burdened by new worries. "What now?" Liam ventured, speaking quietly despite the absence of immediate threats. Lyria glanced at him, her earlier confidence replaced by uncertainty. "Now," she said, exhaling heavily, "we negotiate." Negotiations proved far less straightforward than either of them anticipated. The council chamber aboard the cruiser buzzed with activity, representatives from various factions arguing passionately in tones ranging from diplomatic to downright hostile. Lyria navigated the chaos with practiced ease, her presence commanding respect even among those who clearly opposed her actions. Liam, however, felt woefully out of place, relegated to the sidelines as translators scrambled to keep up with rapid-fire exchanges. Despite the tension, moments of levity occasionally broke through. During a particularly heated debate about interspecies relations, one elder ambassador accidentally triggered a malfunction in his communication device, causing his voice to echo comically throughout the room. Even Lyria stifled a laugh, earning a glare from her stern-faced brother, who had joined the proceedings via hologram. Yet beneath the humor lay a simmering undercurrent of danger. Every decision weighed heavily on Lyria, her responsibilities as princess clashing with her growing attachment to Liam. Late at night, when the formalities subsided and the corridors emptied, she sought solace in his company. "I fear I've put you in peril," she confessed during one such encounter, her usual poise giving way to vulnerability. "For centuries, my family has upheld traditions designed to maintain order. Breaking them is terrifying," Liam finished for her, meeting her gaze steadily. "But maybe necessary?" Lyria considered his words carefully, her luminous eyes reflecting the turmoil within. "Perhaps," she murmured, "but necessity doesn't guarantee success." Their conversations often circled back to themes of change and risk, topics neither of them approached lightly. Yet amidst the uncertainty, something undeniable blossomed between them, a connection forged not just by shared experiences but by mutual admiration and trust. Even as challenges mounted, Liam found himself believing, for the first time in years, that perhaps taking chances wasn't just worthwhile, it might be essential. One evening, while exploring a secluded garden tucked away within the ship, they stumbled upon a peculiar artifact, a tree-like structure composed entirely of crystalline branches that emitted soft, melodic chimes whenever touched. Drawn to its enchanting qualities, Lyria plucked a fragment from one of the branches, handing it to Liam. "A token," she explained, smiling faintly, "to remind you of this place, and of me, should circumstances force us apart." He accepted the gift reverently, tucking it safely into his pocket. "Nothing will force us apart," he declared firmly, though doubt lingered unspoken in the air. As days turned into weeks, the political landscape shifted unpredictably. Alliances fractured, new threats emerged, and the stakes grew higher with each passing hour. Through it all, Lyria remained steadfast, her resolve bolstered by Liam's unwavering support. Together, they faced whatever came their way, bound not just by circumstance but by a bond that transcended galaxies. And yet, lurking in the shadows of their triumphs and trials, questions remained unanswered. What did the future hold for a human and an alien princess daring to defy convention? Could love truly conquer differences as vast as the stars themselves? Only time, and courage, would reveal the answers. The days following the negotiations blurred into a whirlwind of clandestine meetings, whispered plans, and stolen moments between Liam and Lyria. The council had decreed that their relationship, whatever it was or might become, would be tolerated, but only under strict conditions. Lyria's brother, Prince Kalian, remained a vocal opponent, his icy demeanor masking a simmering rage. He made no secret of his disdain for Liam, often casting sidelong glances that felt like daggers aimed directly at the human. "You realize this isn't over," Kalian remarked one day during a tense diplomatic session. His voice carried just enough menace to make the hairs on Liam's neck stand up. "Father may have granted you leniency, sister, but alliances are fragile things. One misstep." Lyria cut him off with a sharp look, her regal bearing unshaken. "Enough, Kalian. Your threats are tiresome." Kalian smirked, leaning back in his seat as if amused by her defiance. Threats? No, dear sister. Merely observations. After all, history has shown us what happens when emotions cloud judgment. Liam clenched his fists beneath the table, resisting the urge to rise to the bait. It wasn't easy. Every fiber of his being wanted to defend Lyria, to prove himself worthy of her trust. But he knew better than to engage in verbal sparring with someone as calculated as Kalian. Instead, he focused on the task at hand, finding a way to stabilize the precarious truce between humans and Etherians. As the political drama unfolded, Lyria introduced Liam to more aspects of her world, determined to show him its beauty despite the turmoil surrounding them. They visited floating cities suspended above oceans of liquid light, explored ancient ruins where gravity seemed optional, and attended galactic festivals where music resonated through the very fabric of space itself. Each experience deepened Liam's appreciation for Lyria's culture, and for Lyria herself. One evening, they found themselves aboard a smaller vessel, drifting lazily through an asteroid field bathed in the soft glow of a dying star. Lyria sat cross-legged on the observation deck, her hands resting lightly on her knees as she gazed out at the cosmic ballet unfolding before them. Liam joined her, settling into a comfortable silence broken only by the occasional hum of the ship's engines. "This is my favorite view," Lyria said after a while, her voice barely above a whisper. "It reminds me of how fleeting everything is, even stars." Liam followed her gaze, marveling at the kaleidoscope of colors dancing across the rocks. "Fleeting doesn't mean insignificant," he replied thoughtfully. "Sometimes, the most beautiful things are the ones that don't last forever." She turned to him then, her eyes searching his face as if trying to memorize every detail. "Do you believe that applies to us?" Her question caught him off guard, though perhaps it shouldn't have. Their bond defied logic, challenged conventions, and risked consequences neither of them fully understood. Yet, sitting there beside her, surrounded by the vastness of the universe, Liam couldn't imagine wanting anything, or anyone, else. "I think we're writing our own story," he said finally, choosing his words carefully. "And even if it's unpredictable, even if it ends differently than we hope, I wouldn't trade it for anything." A smile tugged at the corners of Lyria's lips, lighting up her entire face. "You humans are so peculiar," she teased gently. "Always chasing meaning in chaos." "Maybe," Liam admitted with a shrug. "But isn't that what makes life interesting?" Before she could respond, the ship shuddered violently, throwing them both off balance. Alarms blared, and red warning lights flashed across the control panel. Lyria sprang to her feet, her earlier calm replaced by urgency. "We're under attack!" she exclaimed, rushing toward the cockpit. Liam scrambled after her, adrenaline coursing through his veins. Through the viewport, he spotted several sleek fighters closing in, their weapons already charging. Who, or what, was behind this assault? "Pirates!" he guessed aloud, gripping the edge of the console as another blast rocked the ship. "No," Lyria growled, her fingers flying over the controls. "This is too coordinated. Too precise. This is Kalian's doing." Liam's stomach dropped. Of course it was Kalian. The prince's animosity had been palpable from the start, and now it seemed he decided to take matters into his own hands. The irony wasn't lost on Liam. They were fleeing for their lives because of a man who claimed to care about preserving order. "Can we outrun them?" Liam asked, watching as the enemy ships closed the distance. Lyria shook her head grimly. "Not without help. Hold on." With that, she activated the ship's cloaking mechanism, plunging them into darkness just as another volley of energy bolts streaked past. For a moment, silence reigned, the only sound the faint hum of the engines. Then, slowly, Lyria eased the ship into a narrow gap between two massive asteroids, hiding them from view. "They'll scan for us," Liam pointed out, peering anxiously through the viewport. "Won't they?" "Yes," Lyria confirmed, her jaw tightening. "But not immediately. We need to move quickly." "What's the plan?" Her expression softened slightly, tinged with both affection and determination. "We fight back." The next hour passed in a blur of strategy and sabotage. Using the ship's limited arsenal, Lyria managed to disable 2 of the pursuing vessels while Liam worked feverishly to reroute power to their shields. Despite the chaos, they moved in perfect sync, each anticipating the other's needs without hesitation. When the final attacker closed in, Lyria executed a daring maneuver, spinning the ship around and firing a concentrated burst of energy directly into the pirate craft's core. The explosion lit up the asteroid field like a supernova, leaving behind only debris and silence. Breathing heavily, Liam slumped back in his seat, adrenaline still coursing through him. "Remind me never to get on your bad side." Lyria let out a breathless laugh, her shoulders sagging with relief. "Likewise, human. You handled yourself well." For a moment, they simply stared at each other, the weight of what they'd just survived settling over them. Then, almost instinctively, Liam reached out and took her hand. Her skin was cool against his palm, yet the warmth in her eyes told him everything he needed to know. "We make a good team," he said quietly. She nodded, squeezing his hand gently. "Yes, we do." But their respite was short-lived. As the adrenaline faded, reality began to creep back in. Kalian's betrayal signaled a deeper rift within the royal family, and possibly within the Empire itself. If he was willing to go this far to eliminate Liam, what else might he attempt? "We can't keep running," Lyria said suddenly, her tone resolute. "If Kalian wants a war, then let him have one. But on our terms." Liam frowned, concern etched onto his face. "What are you suggesting?" "That we confront him," she replied firmly. "Expose his schemes to the council. Rally support among those who value unity over division. Show them that change, not fear, is the path forward." It was a bold plan, fraught with risks. Yet as Liam looked at Lyria, seeing the fire in her eyes and the strength in her posture, he realized something important. She wasn't just fighting for herself or for him. She was fighting for a future where love and understanding transcended borders, species, and prejudices. "All right," he said, smiling despite the gravity of the situation. "Let's do it." Together, they plotted their next move, knowing full well that the road ahead would be perilous. But as long as they faced it together, neither of them doubted they could overcome whatever challenges lay in wait. Because sometimes, the greatest adventures aren't about escaping danger, they're about embracing it. And in the vast expanse of the cosmos, Liam Harper and Princess Lyria Valen had discovered something worth fighting for. The journey back to Etherian Prime was anything but straightforward. Lyria and Liam knew they couldn't simply waltz into the royal court with accusations against Kalian. They needed evidence, irrefutable proof of his betrayal. Their first stop was a remote outpost on the edge of Etherian territory, a place Lyria referred to as the Nexus. It wasn't much to look at, a cluster of metallic structures floating in the void, connected by transparent tubes that shimmered faintly under artificial light. But its unassuming appearance belied its importance. It was a hub for intelligence operatives, rogue diplomats, and anyone else who valued discretion over visibility. As they docked at the Nexus, Liam felt a twinge of unease. The atmosphere here was different from anywhere else he'd been. People moved with purpose, their faces obscured by hoods or masks, speaking in hushed tones if they spoke at all. Even the air seemed heavier, charged with secrets and suspicion. Lyria, however, navigated the labyrinthine corridors with practiced ease, her presence commanding respect despite the anonymity of the place. "We're looking for someone," she explained as they entered a dimly lit cantina filled with shadowy figures. "Someone who can give us answers." "And how do you know this person will help us?" Liam asked, keeping his voice low. She shot him a sidelong glance, her lips curving into a sly smile. "Let's just say I've done favors for them in the past. Favors they haven't forgotten." Before Liam could press further, a figure emerged from the crowd, a tall, wiry alien with skin like polished obsidian and eyes that glowed faintly red. They wore a long coat adorned with intricate patterns that shifted subtly, almost hypnotically. When they spoke, their voice carried an otherworldly resonance. "Princess Lyria," the figure greeted, inclining their heads slightly. "I heard whispers of your arrival. What brings you to my humble establishment?" Lyria stepped forward, her demeanor calm but assertive. "I need information, Zitharon. About Kalian." Zitharon's glowing eyes narrowed, and for a moment, the room seemed to grow colder. "That is a dangerous request. Your brother does not take kindly to prying eyes." "I'm aware of the risks," Lyria replied evenly. "But time is not on our side. If we don't act now, Kalian schemes could destabilize everything, not just the Empire, but alliances across the galaxy." Zitharon studied her for a long moment before turning their gaze to Liam. "And what of your human companion? Does he understand the stakes?" Liam straightened, meeting the alien's piercing stare. "I understand enough to know that staying silent isn't an option." To his surprise, Zitharon chuckled softly, the sound echoing strangely in the confined space. "Bold words for a mortal. Very well, princess. I will provide what you seek, but know this, the truth comes at a price." Lyria nodded gravely. "Name it." After exchanging a few more cryptic phrases, Zitharon led them to a secure chamber deep within the Nexus. Inside, holographic projections flickered to life, displaying intercepted communications, financial transactions, and surveillance footage, all implicating Kalian in a web of treachery. He had been funneling resources to factions hostile to human integration, orchestrating covert attacks designed to sow distrust between species, and secretly negotiating with rival empires to undermine the authority of their father, Emperor Valen. "This is worse than I feared," Lyria whispered, her hands trembling slightly as she sifted through the data. "Kalian isn't just trying to eliminate me, or Liam. He's plotting a coup." Liam felt a chill run down his spine. "If he succeeds." "He won't," Lyria interrupted sharply, her voice steel. "Not while I still draw breath." With the evidence secured, they set course for Etherian Prime, knowing the confrontation ahead would be nothing short of explosive. As the crystalline spires of the capital city came into view, Liam couldn't shake the feeling that they were walking into a trap. The palace loomed ahead, its gleaming towers reflecting the dual suns that bathed the planet in perpetual twilight. Guards patrolled the grounds, their movements synchronized and precise, exuding an aura of menace. Inside the grand hall, the council convened, their expressions ranging from curious to hostile. Kalian stood near the throne, his posture relaxed but his eyes sharp, scanning the room with predatory focus. When Lyria and Liam entered, escorted by a contingent of loyal guards, the tension became palpable. "You dare bring a human into these sacred halls?" Kalian sneered, breaking the silence. "Have you no shame, sister?" Lyria ignored him, striding confidently toward the dais where their father sat. Emperor Valen regarded her with a mixture of pride and concern, his aged face lined with wisdom earned through centuries of rule. "Father," Lyria began, her voice ringing clear and steady, "I come bearing truths that cannot be ignored. Truths about Kalian, and the threat he poses to our people." A murmur rippled through the assembly, but Kalian remained unfazed. "Lies," he spat. "This is nothing more than a desperate attempt to discredit me." "Then explain this," Lyria countered, activating a hollow projector that displayed the damning evidence gathered from Zitharon. Gasps erupted throughout the chamber as the council members absorbed the revelations. Kalian's composure faltered for the first time, his mask of arrogance cracking under the weight of exposure. "You have no proof," he shouted, though his voice betrayed a hint of panic. "These are fabrications." "The records are authentic," Lyria replied coolly. "Verified by sources even you cannot refute. Unless, of course, you wish to challenge their validity publicly." Kalian clenched his fists, his jaw tightening as he realized the corner he'd backed himself into. For a moment, it seemed as though he might lash out physically, but then something unexpected happened. A group of council members rose from their seats, stepping forward to stand beside Lyria. "We will not tolerate such treachery," one of them declared, their tone leaving no room for argument. "Prince Kalian, you are hereby stripped of your titles and privileges pending trial." The proclamation sent shock waves through the room. Kalian supporters exchanged uneasy glances, unsure whether to rally to his defense or distance themselves from his downfall. In the end, self-preservation won out, and they remained silent as guards moved to apprehend him. As Kalian was led away, shouting curses and promises of vengeance, Liam felt a surge of relief, but also sadness. Despite everything, He recognized the tragedy of what had transpired. Families torn apart, trust shattered, dreams reduced to ash. And yet, amidst the wreckage, there was hope. When the dust settled, Lyria turned to Liam, her expression softening. "It's over," she said quietly. "For now." He nodded, reaching out to take her hand. "What happens next?" Her smile returned, brighter than ever. "We rebuild. Together." In the weeks that followed, Lyria worked tirelessly to mend the fractures within the Empire, fostering dialogue between factions and promoting policies aimed at unity rather than division. Liam stayed by her side, serving as both confidant and ambassador, bridging gaps between humans and Etherians. Though challenges remained, progress was undeniable. One evening, as they stood together on a balcony overlooking the capital city, bathed in the golden glow of the setting suns, Lyria leaned her head against Liam's shoulder. "Do you think we'll ever have peace?" she asked, her voice tinged with longing. Liam wrapped an arm around her, pulling her close. "Maybe not forever. But as long as we keep fighting for it, I think we'll be okay." She sighed contentedly, closing her eyes. "You're right. We'll be okay." And for the first time in what felt like ages, they allowed themselves to believe it.